Welcome to English Challenges, where you're going to learn how to use real-life English naturally and confidently. I'm Tanya, and I'm going to tell you 5 better ways to say, how are you? So Americans, that's the way we say hi. So first of all, let's start with the meaning. When we say, how are you? I don't care. It's not that we don't care in a bad way, but just we don't care in terms of that's just a different way that we say hi. So if someone's like, oh, how are you? If you responded with, I'm not doing well, I'm feeling a little tense and anxious about it, the person would be like, TMI, too much information, unless that was the intention in the context. But typically, when we first say that as a greeting, it's just the American way to say hi, and the appropriate response is always, I'm good, thanks. So even if you're not good, it's not that you're lying. Again, this is just a social norm, a greeting, a typical exchange, and it starts off conversations. And later on, if you're really having a bad day and you know the person, then it's appropriate to share that. But back to the way to say it. When you're studying English, you typically learn like, hi, how are you? I'm good, thanks. How are you? It's wonderful for beginner English, but if you are past that, if you've noticed that you've never heard that textbook exchange in real life and you're ready to learn how to do it naturally, yay! And by the way, if you love learning real life English and you love learning about confidence and pronunciation and expressions, sign up to become a challenger and you'll get weekly emails from me with tips and videos. Okay, so first, the main question, how are you? When it's enunciated like that, it sounds too formal. Typically, it's the same question technically, but the way we pronounce it makes it sound more casual. How are you? Instead of you, yeah. Like, hey, how are you? How are you? Yeah. So if you're walking down the street and you see someone you're like, hey, how are you? They're not going to stop and talk to you if you don't stop, by the way. So this could be very casual, and they might say, oh, good, nice seeing you. Boop-a-doop-a-doop, and you keep walking. So if the intention is to start a conversation, you would need to stop and indicate with your body language. But for pronunciation, how are you? Whether you're walking into work, you see your boss, like, hey, how are you? If it's someone casual on the street, or if it's a friend, a call, that's how you could pronounce it, so it sounds less textbook. The next one is, how's it going? Now notice that if you read it, how's it going? If I had to pronounce every word perfectly, that's how it would come out, but it would sound silly in real life. So how's it? The S at the end of how's turns into an SZ sound and it links to it. How's it? And notice there's no air release. How's it? So your tongue stops there and there's no air being pushed through. And then going, the G is dropped. And we do this a lot in American English, especially in a casual context. So how's it going really translates to, how's it going? See, even my body relaxes. If I'm doing this, how's it going? I'm tense. It's too much. It's too rigid. It's too formal. Relax your shoulders. How's it going? And notice the body language. How's it going? Okay, so these are ways that it's not just the expression, it's not just memorizing word for word. It's understanding your facial expression, your shoulders are relaxed, and that communicates almost as much as the words that you're using. Now the next one, how are you doing? I see this come up a lot, but I have never in my life said, how are you doing? It's not chill. By chill, I mean just relaxed. But you can use that phrase, and by making some modifications, it can sound like a native speaker would say it. So I would say, hey, how you doing? How ya? Yes, the verb gets dropped. Grammatically, but it's real life. Now, intonation also plays a big part here, because if you pull a Joey from Friends, how you doing? That has a whole different meaning. That's when you're hitting on someone, when you're being flirtatious. And I'll be honest, it's kind of cheesy as a flirty line, so I wouldn't recommend using it, but it works for him. So here, how you doing? How you doing? So listen to the intonation. So here we go from, how are you doing? how are you doing? So the you carries the weight. Again, it's just a little stiff. So how you doing? The G is dropped. Notice my mouth didn't even move as much. So that's a difference when you're learning textbook English and you're in a course or a class and you're enunciating beautifully. Every word is clear. And then you go outside to the real world and it's like, what are they saying? So learning this will help you feel more comfortable. It will help you whether you only choose one of these 5 ways, that's fine. But hearing the other ones will help you feel better. Feel more at ease when you're with native speakers. So again, how you doing? How you doing? Okay, so listen to the rhythm. How you doing? How you doing today? Now that G dropping, sometimes it's depending on the situation where you are, also regional. You know, certain areas of the US drop the G all the time. Others not so much, or it's a subtle G. So you can pay attention to the context when if you're living in the US, or if you're watching shows, think about where they're from. Are they in New York? Are they in the South? Are they in California? Pay attention to if they are in the office versus when they're with friends. Even the same character. You know, how does he or she speak when they're at work versus with their friends later? The next one is, how have you been? So if you read it, how have you been? And then the contraction, because Americans love using contractions, and if you use them more, your English sounds more natural. How have you been? Here, okay, we've got the contraction, but we still have the extra effort with you. Let's soften it up. Yeah. Listen to how Americans use this. We reduce you, this shape, to ya a lot. So, how have you been? How have you been? So see how it looks different? How have you been? How have you been? There's no enclosure. So, how have you been? Hey, how have you been? Right? It feels nice. And your body starts relaxing and the response that you get is so much better. Like if I stopped someone and was like, how have you been? I'll be honest. Their first reaction, because they're processing that you're saying it differently, is just it feels a little jarring. So when you modify it and you say it more naturally, the response that you get is cool. You know, it's nice. It's a more natural interaction, which will lead to communication and conversation, which is why you're learning English. So that's why we do this. This is why it's important to speak naturally, in addition to learning good grammar, and all of that's important. But speaking naturally helps with communicating. And you're not learning English to sit in your room all day. You're learning English to travel, for work, for opportunities, and just to be a part of the culture. Another expression you can use is, hey, what are you up to? What are you up to? Again, right? Huge difference between enunciating every word, reading it in what I would call like an academic way, focusing on every single individual word, and seeing it more as a message, really paying attention to the linking and blending opportunities. So we have what are you up to turns into what are you up to? Right? This is why Americans sound like everything turns into one word, or 7 words can be said in 2 seconds. So listen to how it's done. Ready? So instead of what are, water. It's almost like water, but without opening the mouth for the A sound. So water. Keep it short. Keep it tight. What are you? What are you? What are you up to? What are you up to? Now here, because of the word placement, I would say it's more often than not pronounced you. So the you. What are you? Because your mouth is already there. So instead of expanding, American English is casual. We look for shortcuts for all sounds. So it makes sense in that context. What are you up to? Instead of up, no air release. Up to. So it goes from a P, up to the T, up to. Nice, right? So when you understand that, you'll start paying attention to pronunciation differently. It's so helpful. One more time. Hey, what are you up to? You got it? And remember, pause the video as you need to practice. What are you up to? Now for the response for these questions, since I think it's really imperative to study not just how to ask, but how to respond, or vice versa, you want to be ready for all situations. Maybe somebody asks you these questions. Now you're confident, You know how to, interpret them, you understand what they mean. So to respond, you want to keep it casual and pretty superficial. I'll be honest, for most of these questions, you can just say, I'm good, thanks. Okay, so let's break down each question and the response. So we have, how are you? How are you? Oh, I'm good, thanks. I'm good, thanks. And it's polite to return the question, which honestly, that's kind of cool. You can just repeat whatever they said. So in this case, how are you? I'm good, thanks. How are you? Do you notice that in the response, how are you? I do say you. Okay, and again, this is where the context really helps you understand the best pronunciation to sound natural. How's it going? Oh, good, thanks. How about you? So for that one, how's it going? Good, thanks. How about you? Now here, it's really interesting. We kind of drop the A in about. Instead of how about you, how about you? So again, grammatically, this is conversational English, and I want you to let go of whatever other pronunciation or grammar rules you've learned up to now, and it's about saying it in a way that you get a better response and that you're understood. So how's it going? Good, thanks. How about you? And actually, you can use the same response for how you doing? Hey, how you doing? I'm good, thanks. How are you? So here you can respond with how are you? Because the way the intonation is used, how you doing? That to me is an intonation I would use if I'm starting the question. If I'm responding to that question, how are you? I think that's a more natural response instead of, word for word what they said. How have you been? Oh, good, thanks. You? Right? So you don't have to repeat. When the longer one, sometimes just saying you as a question is sufficient. So how have you been? Oh, good, thanks. You? And again, it's not that all Americans are good all the time, but notice that we say good. We don't typically say like great, amazing, awesome in this particular context. We love those words for everything else. But here, the typical response, the natural greeting, the social norm would be good. So when in doubt, just say you're good. So like, hey, what are you up to? I'll be honest, I wouldn't say that just to someone passing in the street, or if I just like ran into someone. I might say that if I'm passing by a colleague's office and you're like popping like, hey, what are you up to? And if you say it casually, then it's not like a nosy question. What are you doing? Then that really elicits more detailed information. So what are you up to? I could just say, oh, I'm working. Simple. So when someone says, what are you up to? Unless they ask for more detail, a simple response is fine. Like, what are you up to? Not much. You? Not much. You? Hey, what are you up to? Oh, I'm so busy. How about you? I would say the typical response to what are you up to, even when I have a lot of stuff going on, I might just say, oh, not much. You? Nothing really. You? Now, if you are in a context like, for example, if a colleague pops by your office, you might say, oh, I'm really busy right now. That's kind of a way to say, I can't talk. Like, oh, nice seeing you, but can't really talk right now. All right, so now you know expressions that you could use so you're not always saying the typical, how are you? And you know how to respond naturally. Remember, watch this video again, practice the intonation and rhythm, also body language. This is a very casual question. You want to relax your shoulders. It's a friendly question too. Like you typically tell people that you like, or I guess that you kind of have to like, like colleagues maybe, or family, I don't know, that this is something that you can use as a greeting. So you want to make sure that as a greeting, we're typically smiling. So look at the difference between, how are you doing? How are you? It just doesn't match. And Americans are very expressive and smiley. And I know that different cultures perceive smiling differently. In some cultures, it's kind of weird if you're smiling all the time. In the US, it's kind of weird if you're not. So especially for greetings, you want to make sure. Relax shoulders, calm, and at least a slight smile. It makes a difference. How are you? How are you? That intonation changes, the facial expression, the energy. And so that can be the difference between being someone who's perceived as serious or off-putting versus someone who is welcoming and kind, or even just friendly, which can make a big difference if you're looking to meet people when you're traveling or you're living in a different country, or if for professional purposes, being diplomatic, being someone that could be client facing. So this could open up opportunities for promotions or projects. Okay, in the comments, let me know which one is your favorite. So you have some options now. I'd like to recommend when you're learning anything, whether it's phrasal verbs, idioms, or even greetings, learn a lot and then pick one, maybe two that you can actually apply. So of the ones that you learned today, which one is your favorite? Which one feels the most natural when you say it? And that's the one I want you to practice this week. So let me know in the comments which one you like, and remember, sharing is caring. So share this video with someone else in your life who loves American English as much as you and I.